Senator Mary Landrieu's desperate fight to the finish. House Speaker John Boehner's facing a backlash. Plus, hero or zero of the week. All these stories and more coming up on The Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Talent. Ready, camera.
And cue talent.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we run down some of the big stories making headlines. I'm your host, John Phillips. Joining us from Washington, D.C. is PJTV contributor Michelle Fields. And right here in Southern California, almost said sunny Southern California, can't say that today, stand-up comic Stephen Cruiser. Now it's time to go to the top of the rundown. And Cruiser, you're up first.
At the top of my rundown, because there is nothing going on anywhere in the world, the Washington Post assigned a foreign policy writer to dig up dirt on the GOP staffer who said something about the Obama girls on a private Facebook post. That staffer is Elizabeth Lawton. She took to Facebook to comment about the Obama girls' attire and demeanor during the annual turkey pardon. She wrote that the girls should try showing a little class, adding they should dress like they deserve respect, not a spot at the bar. Lawton has since resigned. She was a comms director for Stephen Fincher in Tennessee. Now, one could say, John, that a comms director should know better, but one could also say, hey, it's a private Facebook post. So who's letting this out there? But the ridiculous thing about this is the press has been telling us for years that they don't cover local stories, and now they've got a foreign affairs guy digging up college dirt on the woman after she resigned. The press isn't liberal-leaning. The press is a functioning PR arm of the Democratic Party, isn't it?
Right, and so they're now painting all Republicans as having the same beliefs as this woman on the Obama girls. Yet when President Obama meets with Al Sharpton, the guy that was behind the Tawana Brawley hoax, well, you can't blame President Obama for having friends like that or advisors like that. Those are Al Sharpton's opinions. Al Sharpton speaks for himself and not for anyone else. So they want it both ways.
Michelle, Andrew Breitbart used to always talk about dismantling the Democrat media complex, and now social media has helped us highlight a lot of the bias, and highlighting it is good. It increases awareness, but I'm not sure that we're doing anything to dismantle any of this yet. Should we just go mano a mano with the press when they do things like this? Should we send out people to dig up dirt on their reporters now and do things like it? Just go get in the mud with them?
Well, I think the problem is that we don't have the huge media empire that they do. So if we were to dig up dirt, let's say, on a Democratic aide on their private Facebook, what they said, it wouldn't get the press that this story did. I mean, this was the biggest story Thanksgiving weekend, was this random press aide. And yes, you know, she's a communications person. She should know not to write that, but it was her private Facebook. But this shouldn't have been the biggest story of the week, which it ended up being.
I think the real cautionary tale here is, and we repeat it often and over again, is in the social media era right now, all of this can blow back on your career. All of this can blow back on your job. You have to be very careful, even if you're a college person who wants to enter the workforce. Everybody needs to be cognizant of that.
I want to make one more point on the broader issue of spouses and children of politicians.
Okay.
Politicians want it both ways. They always say that you can't criticize my spouse, you can't criticize my children, because that's my family and they're off limits.
Yeah.
But Michelle Obama travels around the country speaking at political events. Michelle Obama travels around the country hosting Democratic Party fundraisers. When you look at the campaign ads or the campaign websites, many politicians are happy to put pictures of themselves with their wives and their children on the website.
Well, that's
so
different.
They use them as props. Go ahead.
I think Michelle Obama is completely fair game, but I don't think the children are fair game. I think they're off limits.
But they put pictures of the kids on the website, though, don't they? They put them in the mailers.
They do, but they're not overtly political the way that a lot of spouses are, like Michelle Obama. I think, you know, Michelle Obama goes out there and she's very political, that it's fair game. You could criticize her. But the children, they don't want to go to these events. It's not like they want to be in their parents' photos. They're sort of dragged into it. So I kind of feel sorry for them in a way.
I think I agree with what you say. I kind of agree with what Michelle says, too, here. I think, as anyone who's remotely in the public, especially involved in politics, if you don't want your kids involved, keep your kids out of it. The president can shield the first daughters more than he does. You know, they didn't need to be there for the photo op at the turkey thing the other day. You know, you got to know your teenage girls. That's on the list of things they wanted to do that day. There might have been some eye rolling. Eye rolling is what teenage girls do, but you can shield them better too.
We have a friend who's in radio, and I've known this guy for years now. You've known him longer, and you know him better than I do. I've never met his wife, and I've never met his kids.
Do you even know her name?
Don't even know her name.
That's what I'm talking about.
He never posts pictures of his kids on his Facebook page or on the radio station's webpage or pictures of the spouse there because he wants them to remain private. If you want them private, you've got to keep them private. You can't then turn around and use them as props, though.
Yeah, he and I are fairly tight, and I didn't know his wife's name for the first year and a half I knew him.
There you go. Yeah. All right, Michelle, what do you have for us?
At the top of my rundown, Treasury Secretary Jack Lew is looking to see if his tax aides broke laws in sharing taxpayer information with the White House. Some 2,500 documents were found last week showing that the IRS shared taxpayer returns with the White House. The Obama administration has now said, of course, it will not release those documents. You know, when Republicans were talking about this IRS scandal, liberals in the White House were saying that this was a witch hunt, this was a fake scandal. Doesn't this show, John, that it actually is a scandal and there is something to this story?
Oh, absolutely. And I love the fact that the guy that ran for president as, I'm going to change the way that Washington does business, and it's going to be different. I'm going to be the most transparent president in the history of the country.
Right.
Whenever he gets caught doing something like this, the answer is always, well, everybody else does it. Why are you picking on me? I mean, look at what happened with this ambassador that he just named to Hungary. She's a woman who worked in the soap opera industry for years and years and years, who doesn't know much about Hungary, who couldn't name the major American strategic interest in that part of the world when she was being grilled by the Senate. So when Josh Earnest was up talking about this particular choice to John Karl of ABC News, and John Karl says, this woman has no qualifications. How can you name her ambassador to Hungary? Is it because she's a bundler? The answer is, well, you know, this is how business is done in Washington. And that's kind of, that's, I think, one of his big failings with the left, with the base of his own party. This is part of the reason why you're seeing people like Harry Reid and why you're seeing people like Chuck Schumer speak out against him. This guy doesn't know the vocation of being a politician. He's been there for 6 years, almost 6 years, and he still hasn't learned anything.
Well, he's not in it for the party, he's in it for himself, and that's what they're just starting to realize. That's always been the case, but they're just starting to realize that right now. And this transparency issue is one that befuddles me because it seems like something that both sides should be able to get together pretty easily on. You know, I don't know where, I know how. It was a lot of the, you know, the 60s radicals became the man, and they had a lot of cognitive dissonance when that happened. They've been railing against the man for so long, then they became the man. But I don't know how those people, those vehemently anti-government people, created this era now and this party now that kind of just trusts the government implicitly and doesn't look at things like this anymore, because it really is scary. And I think one of the greatest ways we could come together in a truly bipartisan fashion is to realize just how creepy the government is, especially when it comes to transparency and the things they're allowed to hide from us.
Well, it's weird because you look at the history of the country. This is a country that's built on government distrust. We distrusted the British. We didn't like the way they were operating, so we went off and did our own thing. The left distrusts government, but they distrust different parts of government than we do. Yeah. They don't trust the cops.
Yeah.
We don't trust the IRS.
Yeah.
And then whenever we question what's going on at the IRS, they have 100% blind faith in that organization, and they can't understand how you would ever question the agency that has dedicated public servants there that are doing God's work. And it's funny to see them scream about the cops one day and then defend the IRS blindly the next.
Yeah, everybody needs to understand that it's all the same government. People don't get that. I mean, the only part I semi-trust, and I don't even trust the bureaucrats running it, are the military. Beyond that, and law enforcement for the most part, but still, bad seeds there, and the bureaucracy when you're dealing with the paperwork, that's bad. But overall, government is force, and government can be creepy.
The top of my rundown, Louisiana Democratic Senator Mary Landrieu has been running radio ads ahead of Saturday's Senate runoff. Those ads have been on urban radio stations that criticize the GOP's treatment of the country's first black president. Meanwhile, when addressing white audiences, Landrieu's been trying to distance herself from President Obama. The numbers in this race, Stephen Cruiser, are bad for Mary Landrieu, and they're getting worse. The polls say she's going to lose by double digits. When you look at early voting patterns, it's nowhere near the numbers that she's going to need to pull this thing off. Is she toast?
Most of the mainstream media is kind of mailing that in right now, saying, yeah, a couple days ahead of the runoff, they're saying, no, she's out of here, she's out of here, she's out of here. Her last-ditch effort right now is those billing discrepancies that she brought up in the debate. First of all, it's a little, you know, she's trying to drill down into, like, the details there, and it's not an easy sell. And secondly, it's like Cassidy's done a bright thing. He hasn't responded to it. He's just kind of ignored it and left it out there so it didn't turn into this back and forth. And they don't have a lot of stuff that he's saying to seize on, which was a brilliant move on his part and his handlers. And I don't think that's going to play for her, because now her last Hail Mary, if you will, pardon the pun, is to say, well, he's going to be subpoenaed if you vote for him. And I don't really know that that's going to move the needle enough for her. That's where she is the last few days with the, he's going to be subpoenaed, don't vote for him. And that's not going to work.
You know, Michelle, in the last polls before November's election, Mary Landrieu was down by 4 or 5 points to a Republican opponent. Now it looks like she's going to lose by double digits. The spread, does it matter here? Are people going to look at this and say, okay, she lost by 15 points. This is the country saying the president's executive actions on immigration are just something that we won't accept, and the country is now turning against him even in greater numbers than they did in the November election? Or are people just going to say, it's the South, it's a Republican year, let's ignore it?
Well, I think the Republican pundits are going to say, yes, this is because of immigration, this is because of Gruber, this is because people are unhappy with Obamacare, with immigration, with President Obama. But of course, the mainstream media and the liberals are going to say, it's the South, it's not a big deal. But I absolutely think she's going to lose. I think she's going to lose really bad. The fact that she's trying to say, oh, look at how Republicans are mistreating the first black president. I mean, that's desperate. What she's trying to do there is tap into sort of the Ferguson race war going on right now down there. But yeah, I think she's going to lose. And I think, of course, the Republican pundits are going to see it one way and the mainstream media is going to see it another.
All right, now it's time to move on to Hero or Zero. This, of course, is where we pick a person or a group for doing something very good or very bad. And Michelle, you're up first.
My zero is our Homeland Security Chief. He was questioned on Capitol Hill about how President Obama's executive amnesty plan benefits legal Americans. He was unable to explain. Take a listen.
So tell me, how will adding at least 5 million new competitors to the workforce make it easier for the unemployed Americans to find a job?
Congressman, the fact is, as I'm sure you know, that we have lots of undocumented in this country working off the books. And if that's not apparent, then I suggest you spend some time in a restaurant here in the Washington, D.C. area to see it for yourself. What we want to do is encourage those people to get on the books, and I will provide them a work authorization so that they may legally continue in the.
But how does that make it easier for the American worker? We keep talking about the illegal immigrant. Here we go again, talking about the illegal immigrant and how we can make it easier for them. How does this help the American worker who can't find work and can't provide for his family? Who's fighting for them? Why don't we talk about the American worker and what this will do to them, not what it will do for the illegal immigrant?
Well, the economy is getting better, as I'm sure you know. And the question of U.S. jobs, American jobs, is, in my view, a separate issue.
So he didn't have an answer, clearly.
Humana, 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 humana.
I've been on a couple of conference calls with Barletta. He's a lot of fun. He's really not going to let somebody dance around much.
You know, here's the disturbing thing. This guy, Jay Johnson, was on the short list to be Secretary of Defense.
Yeah. Always somebody worse waiting in the wings in this administration. Don't get too excited when someone resigns or gets canned.
All right, Cruiser, you're up next.
My zero of the week is House Speaker John Boehner. Surprise! He's now punting the immigration fight until next year. Boehner is doing so in order to pass a spending bill. He hopes the delay would result in Democratic support in getting the spending bill through the House and the Senate. So here we go. Here's what I think we're seeing here, actually, is Boehner has been so used to, since he's been Speaker, being able to do these little symbolic things with the whole, oh, well, we can't get it done in the Senate. So he's been able to do the grandstanding stuff, playing little games like this for the press. And this is when he's trying, he doesn't understand that next year he's actually going to have to start working for things because there's a chance that they may get passed in the Senate. It's not a done deal, but there's a chance now. And he can't do this anymore. And he's still clinging to his standard MO. This is ridiculous what he's doing here. He's not using the one power that he really has right now, which is the power of the purse. He's not threatening anything, and the threat is good enough. You don't always have to go through it, but you got to play it a little bit at first. You can't just go, all right, well, I'm going to do this symbolic thing, and now I'm going to go talk to Nancy Pelosi and see if we can get something together. It's just, I always thought that he would be the first one in the leadership to fail us once the new majority happens, and I think he will continue to do so.
Well, we'll see what happens when the Republicans take over the Senate. That's when we'll really know what John Boehner's made out of.
And what Mitch McConnell, let's see if McConnell can force Boehner's hand in any way. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
My zero is Honey Boo Boo star Chickadee for pitching a product that claims to prevent Ebola. Chickadee, whose specialty I believe is in pediatrics. Her real name is Anna. She's the oldest daughter of the now-canceled TLC show, Here Comes Honey Boo Boo. She signed up with a company called Young Living Essential Oils. The company says its products are multi-purpose and can prevent Ebola and even cancer. The FDA has warned the company not to make that claim. How about that medical advice from Honey Boo Boo?
How is the FDA just warning that? How are they just not flat out saying you're not allowed to do this legal? They're so strong-armed on so many other things, so many like supplements that people take all the time. Why are they not just shutting this down completely? I mean, I'm not a big fan of strong regulation, but maybe in this case.
I don't know. If you're stupid enough to believe that, I don't think the FDA telling you anything is gonna change that. You're obviously an idiot if you really think some essential oils are going to prevent cancer and Ebola.
You know what? I'm with Michelle on this one because social Darwinism needs to take place sometimes.
Yes.
And if this is what you think is going to be your saving grace, then go ahead and roll the dice.
Let it be known that on this date, I was not the first one to say, let the stupid people kill themselves. That's the two nicer, smiley ones on the panel were the ones that said that. And it's just, the whole world's getting weird.
Maybe they'll have a placebo effect. Maybe it will help them. Who knows? Let them believe it.
Oh, no, this oil is going to give you some kind of nasty rash.
You're going to throw a third ear. Hi.
All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Would you take health advice from Honey Boo Boo? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments section below. I'm John Phillips for Stephen Cruiser joining me here in Los Angeles and Michelle Fields in the nation's capital. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.